Welcome to this lecture. Over the next few minutes, we will unpack the European Union's food labeling system. A food label in the EU is much more than a sticker. It is a highly regulated legal document and the primary channel of communication between the producer and the consumer. We will explore exactly what information must be legally included on these labels, how this data empowers consumers to make environmentally sustainable choices, and finally, how specific labeling systems act as an economic engine for rural tourism across Europe. The entire framework of EU food labeling is governed by the FIC regulation of 2011. The EU operates on the principle that consumers have a fundamental right to know exactly what they are eating. The objectives of this legislation are threefold. First, safety. Labels must prevent health crises by clearly stating allergens and safe consumption dates. Second, transparency. The label must not lie or mislead the buyer about what the product is or where it comes from. Third, informed choice. The label provides the data necessary for a consumer to vote with their wallet. Furthermore, the EU dictates that this information cannot be hidden in the microscopic text. It must be clear, legible, and easy to find. Let's dive into the mandatory categories. First, what is the legal name of the food must be present. You cannot invent a fancy market name. If it is a chocolate-flavored vegetable fat spread, the label must say so. Next, what is in it? Ingredients must be listed by weight from the heaviest to the lightest. Crucially, this is where allergens information lives. The EU mandates that the 14 major allergens be visually highlighted within the ingredients text, usually bolded. This ensures that someone with a severe, for example, peanuts or gluten allergy, can scan the label and instantly identify risks. Finally, the net quantity ensures the consumer knows exactly how much product they are paying for. Continuing with mandatory requirements, we have the nutritional declaration. This standard table allows consumers to easily compare the health impact of different products side by side. Next is the date marking, which is vital for reducing food waste. It is important to distinguish between use by, which is a hard safety deadline for perishable like raw chicken, and best before, which simply means that the product might lose some flavor or texture, but is still safe to eat. Finally, we have the country of origin. While not mandatory for every highly processed food, it is required for primary products like fresh meat, honey, olive oil, or in any situation where the packaging might trick the consumer into thinking a product comes from somewhere it doesn't. How does this mandatory and regulated voluntary information drive sustainability? Simply put, you cannot make a green choice if you are kept in the dark. Origin labeling is the first step. If a consumer in Italy sees that garlic comes from a neighboring region rather than across the globe, they can choose the local option to reduce food miles and carbon emission, for example. Then we have the EU organic logo, the famous leaf made of star. This is a highly regulated label. Seeing it guarantees the consumer that the product was made respecting biodiversity, animal welfare, and without synthetic pesticides. By rigorously regulating these labels and banning vague greenwashing terms, the EU ensures that when a consumer pays a premium for a sustainable product, their money actually supports sustainable agriculture. Now, we look at labeling from the producer perspective. While geographical indications like PDO, PGI are important, they aren't the only tools available. For a small producer in rural areas, the mandatory information on a standard label is a powerful storytelling tool. When a tourist visits a farm, The label acts as a verified resume. A short, clean list of ingredients proves the purity of the food. Clear origin labeling, even if standard, creates a physical link between the jar on the shelf and the field the tourist is standing in. By highlighting specific mandatory details like processing methods, the producer transfers legal requirements into a narrative of quality and craftsmanship. The heart of rural tourism is trust. A tourist chooses a farm stay because they want an authentic experience. The label reinforces this authenticity. When a producer provides clear, detailed, and transparent information, they are practicing an open book policy. This reduces the gap between what the producer knows and what the consumer sees. If the label matches the reality of the farm visit, trust is solidified. This trust doesn't just last for the duration of a trip. It turns a one-time visitor into a lifelong brand ambassador who trust the product's quality because they have seen the transparency of its communication firsthand. To wrap up, European labeling laws do much more than list ingredients. They form a system of transparency that protects health and empowers sustainable choices. More than that, through geographical indication, labels protect the intellectual property of rural farmers. They turn local food into a global tourism draw, provided that a well-regulated label isn't just about consumer protection. It's an essential tool for sustainable rural development. Thank you.